All right, and welcome back to another episode, our second attempt at our, as of now, unnamed Spartan Village podcast. Later in this episode, we're going to meet and speak with Dylan and Frankie from the football team in anticipation of tomorrow's big game, the first of the regular season at Cardinal Spellman. But yeah, we're recording this after school on Thursday, a little over 24 hours till the first football game of our, I think, first ever spring football season. And yes, there is anticipation building as the boys get excited to travel to Brockton tomorrow. But we'll talk more about that later. We have, in other news, today's March 11th. We're, believe it or not, a year removed from this pandemic being officially declared a pandemic. And actually, I think a fitting topic for our Spartan Sports podcast, as the beginning of this pandemic was really tightly interwoven with the world of sports. The first domino to fall was the NBA. It was like 9 p.m., 8 p.m. on March 11th. That Jazz Nuggets game got suddenly canceled or postponed because of Rudy Gobert's positive test at the last moment. You remember where you were when all this NBA mayhem went down?
Yeah, I was getting ready to, I believe the Lakers had a game later that night, and I watch LeBron a lot. He's my favorite, probably my favorite athlete, so I keep close tabs on them. But yeah, everything just, I have alerts on my phone that start going off saying the game got shut down, and people were kind of unclear as to why, because at that point they had a stadium full of people. And then you started hearing stories about who it was that was positive, because for a while, for a few hours, nobody knew. And then all these video clips came out about he had been making like jokes and kind of messing around with the media about it, where there was the one, I don't know if you saw, where he like went and touched every microphone.
Right.
Just like, and I think that was there. The whole country was kind of in that mindset at that time, like not really knowing what was going on and whether we should be too concerned. And so then after that, you heard a lot of things about like the way he was acting in the locker room, and that there were some players who were upset with him over it and whatnot, because they might have made him, he might have made them sick and them test positive. So yeah, it all happened so very quickly. And then, we were only in school for 2 more days after that before we got the notice that we were going home as well.
Yeah, it's funny if you think about it. Rudy was kind of the first person to be publicly shamed for poor COVID behavior, which is something we got used to seeing on the internet a lot. But he was the first, right? He was like the first one to be like attacked on the internet for not taking COVID seriously. Although, if I remember correctly, at the time the game was canceled, it wasn't even known that it was necessarily COVID related. Because I remember people kind of freaking out, because if you think about it, a year ago, when it came to mass gatherings, what was it that we were afraid of? Like, what were the only threats to mass gatherings? Like terrorist attacks or something. And I remember like the crowd was like, what is happening? Like, why are we being sent home or whatever? And yeah, just a different world a year removed.
Well, so for the players, but I remember it was like, I think they were actually playing the Thunder, I want to say. And it was Chris Paul maybe who came over to the Jazz huddle and like to like ask them what was going on. And the players were like, get away, like we might all be positive. So they knew what was going on. But yeah, everybody is there at the arena for the start of the game, like totally confused as to what's happening. And it's definitely an unsettling feeling for sure.
And then it was like 30 minutes later, we had the Tom Hanks and his wife announcement that they had it, and they were the first celebrity figures that we were aware of to contract it. And
Tom Hanks is like, everybody says he's like America's dad. So it's
right,
like that.
Right.
That was the perfect person for, I think, a lot of people to really start paying closer attention and take it a lot more serious. So.
And I think we had a Trump announcement that night too. I think that was the first night that he ever addressed everyone. I get those days confused. The Wednesday of the game and then the Friday when school shut down. In my memory, that's all like one long day.
Right. Yeah. I'm not
Well,
sure.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to look back a year later, though, because it's the longest year of our lives. But to look at where we're at in terms of school and especially sports, because sports were affected, as we saw from the very beginning. What do you think out of all the out of the four main professional leagues? What do you think? Which how would you grade them? Which leagues handled them best?
I think the NBA would have to get an A just because if you look at the bubble, obviously there was so much planning and coordinating that had to go into that, so much money that had to go into that. Um, but over the 3 months that they were there, I want to say it was like 90 something days was like the longest that anybody was there. For the teams that played in the finals, they were there the longest because they got there the same day everybody else got there, but they kept playing all the way
Hmm.
through. And of all the people, there were thousands obviously of people involved. They had zero positive tests the entire time. And so they truly were able to establish a bubble and not let the virus in as much as possible. So I would say the NBA definitely gets an A. The NFL did better than I thought it was going to go. I think that baseball was scary because baseball seemed to be like the locker rooms were just becoming such an issue and so much travel, and they're playing every day, so like there were periods of time where it was like games getting postponed left and right. But when the NFL games got postponed, they were able to say, okay, we're going to play 2 days from now on a Wednesday, and then next week will be Tuesday, and then the following week will be Monday, so they could still space out their schedule as well as possible. And as far as like opt outs, there were a few, but there weren't too many like high profile players that opted out. So like the quality of the games were, I thought, really really strong still, and I thought it was a really good season. So I think the NFL did really well as well. Um, and I could probably tell you more about European soccer than I could the NHL, but it seems like the
Well, the
NHL
NHL
is
bubble had zero positive cases too, and they got their playoffs in and all that stuff too. So yeah, that was pretty good as well. The NFL got all their games in and they finished their season when they said they would. So in spite of the fact they had games where quarterbacks weren't ready to play or uh, um, and maybe some games where that shouldn't have been played at all, but they kind of forced them through. They did what they said they were going to do. So yeah, probably a good mark there as well. I think baseball's unforgivable that they only got 60 games in.
right.
That seemed kind of silly. How about the MIAA? What did you give the MIAA for? No, you don't want to get in
Um,
trouble or
no, I say um, I have a friend who complains about them all the time, but I
oh,
think
well, who doesn't?
in this instance, I know in this instance, I think they've done a really nice job, and I think that they it's really hard for, I mean, the state that we're in, obviously, depending on where you go and what region you're in, the virus impacts different communities totally differently. And so, for them, I think their mindset was like, okay, we're going to tell you what's possible, but ultimately you and your school and your district have to figure out if it's feasible and doable and handle it, because there's just so many variables from where we are on the South Coast to Boston, all the way out to Western Mass. Things are so much different. And so I think they did a good job of giving everybody the platform. And like, if you, feel like you can do it safely, then you have our blessing kind of, and like, this is how it's going to operate. And so just the fact that they gave us a chance is the biggest thing. And like I've said before, I think so far, knock on wood, we've really taken full advantage of that chance, and it's been a really good experience for our kids so far. So
I think they should hire you as a spokesperson because that was probably the most positive spin on uh, how at least the fall and winter went down. Well, before playing our interview with Dylan and Frankie that we recorded yesterday morning, let's actually talk really quick about tomorrow's game. We got Spellman up in Brockton, played them last year, though this is the first time we're playing them as conference rivals. Um, how did last year go?
they've had a strong program for a while. Last year they beat us 33-0. They shut us out in the second week of the season. And so, I think our rosters probably look a lot different. And football is always a sport where you're going to be carrying a lot of seniors just because there's so many players on the team. You're dressing sometimes 30, 40, 50 kids depending on where the school is. And so, like for us, we have 15 seniors this year, and so it'll be interesting to see how many returning players that they have, because I know that our school definitely feels good. Our team feels good about how many seniors we're bringing back this year. And the Standard Times had wrote a nice article about all 15 seniors and kind of how they're approaching the season and what they're excited for and those sorts of things. So I feel like we have a core group of kids that have been with our coaching staff now for all 4 of their years, which is important. Continuity is super important. You hear about that a lot in football, is like talking about a new system, whether you're learning a new offense or a new defense. And so our kids are really comfortable in the system. A lot of this stuff comes second nature to them when the coaches tell them, what to do out on the practice field. They kind of just put it into um, they're able to integrate it right away because they're so familiar. So I think we're going to lean on our experience and hopefully give them a much better game this time around.
Yeah, and as we learned yesterday in our conversation with Dylan and Frankie, um, they're only letting 2 people per player in for attendance purposes. And you and I discovered that in spite of their new facility, Spelman does not have any sort of internet or streaming service available to watch this game. So we're gonna be like the old days, just like sitting at home waiting for some sort of update to come through of how this game goes. We're gonna have to wait till after the fact, and we're gonna have to break it down next week along with someone who was there to let us know how this one plays out. But that's a bit disappointing, huh?
Yeah, I think the major thing is that a lot of the schools we're saying we're going to try and stream basketball and make it live as much as possible because we're only allowing one parent or family member into the gym. And so that other parent or family member is then able to be at home and watch the game. And I think what a lot of schools are saying now, if they don't have this option, is, well, we're allowing 2 parents. So it's like, there's less people who are going to have a desire to watch at home. But I really feel like this is going to be a part of high school sports going forward for years, because it was so nice to be able to just get on YouTube and watch a game anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's big for scouting for other coaches to just pop it in and not have to go all the way there and get into the game. But I think grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and friends like got used to being able to tap in and say, okay, I'm going to watch my friend or my niece or nephew or anything like that, my grandson, granddaughter, play their game. And so I think
Yeah,
you're
and
seeing a lot.
a lot of the teams were doing like highlight reel. I know the basketball boys were putting together like there were like highlight packages of
Mhm.
some of the games and stuff, and like that sort of stuff is great for people that can't attend.
Right. So yeah, we're gonna definitely get it up and running here, and then I think hopefully you'll see a lot of the other schools that we're playing on the road will have some form of a live stream going on, so that we can um, look in. But I will say the technology on the outdoor live stream is a little bit behind what it is indoor with some of these companies, so that could contribute to it as well. But I think going into next year, we're going to have indoor streaming, outdoor streaming, and hopefully a new facility that we'll be really excited for.
Yeah, and fingers crossed we're able to figure this out for next Saturday. So the first home game, you and I can be there, have an excuse to be there, and we'll be able to stream it for everyone at home and be able to talk with them as we try to narrate the events for them.
That's right.
Well, we're about to run through Frankie and Dylan's interview from yesterday. Real quick thoughts. It was a good conversation yesterday morning.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I think the biggest thing that you get from them, the sense that you get from them, is that like this is and if you read that article in the Standard Times, this is a group that's really close knit. And if you see them around school, these guys are always with each other, and they seem to be high on confidence and be very supportive of each other. And they kind of feel like like Dylan was talking about a little bit, like they all have something to prove and they're all excited to get out there and show what they can do after, a year and a half off. So I think the biggest thing is just their togetherness. Like you can feel it. They kind of fed off each other in the interview as well, just like they do on the field. So, yeah, no, I thought it was really good. Gave us some really good insight. And I think we've had all good guests so far. So looking forward to talking to more people.
Yeah, the South Coast article you're referencing, or you referenced there at the beginning, you can find it on the South Coast Today website. It's called Bishop Stang Football Ready for First Season in the Catholic Central League. If you type in some combination of those words in the Google search engine, it'll come up. Yeah, and what you learned from Dylan's interview in that article and with us, they just seem ready to have a senior year of football. And probably more than any other sport, seniors take ownership and possession of their final year in football, and they just seem ready to go. And it's a short season, and there's no tournament to look forward to or to even try to get into, but they don't care. It's football, man. They're going to play 7 games and they're going to try to do their best. And 4-7 last year. And like you said, a tough road game at Spelman, and they're going to be there again. But I'm really interested to see how this goes with, they're coming out of a winter instead of a summer full of practices and working out. These teams aren't going to be as ready as they were, no matter what they say. They're not going to be as ready as they normally are. Their bodies aren't going to be as ready, which could be worrisome, like injury wise. And yeah, curious. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think Spartans win 14-10. Let's go.
I like, I
Yeah,
like that.
I'm
I
just
like
going
that a
for it.
lot.
Put myself out there.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we're going to send it over to our interview yesterday with Frankie and Dylan. And when we come back next week, we'll be breaking down the game. Who knows who we'll get on to help us do that. Someone who actually had eyes on the field will be with us to break down this game on Friday. And we are looking forward to trying to get someone from track on to talk about the upcoming track season, maybe even some cheer. Who knows? But I think that'll do it for now. Any last thoughts, Nate?
No, go Spartans.
Go Spartans. Until next time, thank you.